Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his forehead as he watched the cargo bay doors seal shut. Another delivery complete. The metal clanged with a sound that reminded him of home, back on Earth where things made sense. Here on Zephyr Station, nothing made sense anymore. "That's the last of it," Tony Rivera called out from across the bay. His voice echoed in the large space. Tony was Jake's co-pilot and best friend. They had been flying together for 3 years now, ever since humans got permission to trade with aliens. Lisa Kane looked up from her datapad. She was studying the alien workers who had helped unload their cargo. Lisa was a scientist who studied alien life forms. She always watched everything with curious eyes. "Did you see how the Zephirites worked together?" she asked. "They moved like one mind controlling many bodies." Jake nodded, but did not really care. He just wanted to finish their business and leave. Zephyr Station was the biggest trading post in this part of space. Ships from dozens of different worlds came here to buy and sell goods. But humans were still new here. Most aliens did not trust them. The 3 humans walked through the station's main corridor. The ceiling was high and curved like the inside of a giant tube. Bright lights lined the walls. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved past them. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others slithered or floated or rolled on wheels. A group of tall, gray-skinned aliens passed by. They were Valdari. Their large black eyes looked at the humans with what seemed like disgust. One of them made a clicking sound with its mouth. Jake did not need to understand their language to know it was not friendly. "Just ignore them," Lisa whispered. "We are still on probation. Any trouble and humans might lose trading rights." Jake's jaw tightened. He had been a Marine before becoming a cargo pilot. In the Marines, he learned to stand up to bullies. But here in space, he had to bite his tongue and take insults. It went against everything he believed in. They reached the main market area. This was where most aliens came to eat, drink, and make deals. The air smelled strange. It was a mix of different alien foods and cleaning chemicals. Strange music played from speakers in the walls. Captain Helen Brooks stood near the security station. She was the human security chief for this section of the station. Brooks had been a Navy officer before taking this job. She kept the peace between humans and aliens. "Morrison," Brooks called out as they passed. "How was the delivery?" "Smooth as always, Captain," Jake replied. "No problems with the Krex military patrol this time." Brooks nodded. "Good. Try to keep it that way. We had another incident yesterday. Some human merchant got into an argument with a Valdari trader. Took me 4 hours to sort it out. The Krex were one of the most dangerous alien races. They looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They had sharp teeth and claws. Most Krex worked as soldiers or security guards. They believed that strength was the only thing that mattered." Lisa pointed toward a large room with tables and chairs. "The Nebula bar," she said. "Want to get something to eat before we head back to the ship?" Tony's stomach growled loudly. "I could eat. Even alien. Food is better than ship rations." Jake was not hungry, but he followed his friends into the bar. The room was crowded and noisy. Different alien species sat at different tables. Humans had their own section in one corner. It was smaller than the other sections. They found an empty table and sat down. A robot waiter rolled over to take their order. Jake ordered water and some kind of alien sandwich. He tried not to think about what might be in it. The bar was loud with many different voices, speaking in many different languages. Jake could hear the deep growls of Krex soldiers at one table, the high-pitched whistles of bird-like aliens at another, the electronic beeps and clicks of machine-like beings near the windows. "Look at that," Lisa said quietly. She pointed toward the center of the room. A group of Zephirites sat at a large round table. They were small aliens with blue skin. And forearms. What made them special was how they thought. Each Zephyrite was connected to all the others in their group. They shared one mind between many bodies. 3 Krek soldiers stood around the Zephyrite table. The lizard-like aliens were much bigger than the Zephyrite. One of the Kreks was poking one of the smaller aliens with his clawed finger. "What are they doing?" Tony asked. Lisa frowned as she watched. "I think the Kreks are harassing them. Zephyrite are peaceful. They do not fight back when attacked." Jake's hands tightened into fists under the table. The Krek soldier pushed one of the Zephyrite off his chair. The small blue alien fell to the floor. The other Zephyrite did not move to help. That was not their way. "Jake," Lisa warned, seeing the look on his face. "Do not even think about it. This is not our problem." But Jake was already standing up. The Krek soldier kicked the fallen Zephyrite. That was enough. "Hey!" Jake shouted across the bar. Every alien in the room turned to look at him. "Leave them alone." The 3 Krek soldiers turned toward Jake. The biggest one smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Human," it growled in broken English. "It's not your business." Jake walked toward them. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was steady. "It is my business when I see bullies picking on someone who cannot fight back." The bar had gone quiet. Every alien was watching now. Lisa and Tony hurried to catch up with Jake. "Please," Lisa said to the Krek soldiers. "We do not want any trouble." They lead Kreks laughed. It was a harsh, ugly sound. "Too late for that, soft human. Your friend has big mouth." Jake stopped right in front of the Kreks. The alien was at least a foot taller than him and probably twice as heavy. But Jake had faced bigger enemies before. "Pick on someone your own size," Jake said. The Kreks' eyes narrowed. "You think you can stop us, little human?" Jake smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Why did not you try me and find out?" The first Krek soldier swung his massive clawed hand at Jake's head. Jake ducked under the swing and punched the alien hard in the stomach. The Kreks doubled over, making a surprised hissing sound. The second Kreks grabbed Jake from behind, wrapping powerful arms around his chest. Jake threw his head back hard, hitting the alien in the face. Green blood splattered from the Kreks' broken nose. Tony jumped on the third Kreks' back. "Yahoo!" he shouted. "Ride M, cowboy." The alien spun around, trying to throw Tony off, but the human held on tight. Lisa looked around frantically. She did not want to fight, but she could not leave her friends. When she saw the first Kreks getting back up, she grabbed a metal serving tray from a nearby table and hit him over the head with it. The sound of metal on skull rang through the bar like a bell. Other aliens in the bar started taking sides. A group of Valdari stood up from their table. These tall, gray aliens thought they were smarter than everyone else. They believed humans were just violent animals. "Typical human behavior," one Valdari said to another. "They solve everything with violence." But then something strange happened. A young Valdari, who had been watching the Zephyrite get bullied, stepped forward. "The humans are protecting the weak," he said. "That is not typical behavior for any species we know." Commander Thector was the leader of the Krek soldiers. He was bigger and stronger than the others. His scales were darker, and scars covered his arms and face. He had been watching from across the bar, but now he stood up. "Enough!" Thector roared. His voice was so loud it shook the glasses on the tables. "You dare attack Krek's warriors?" Thector charged across the bar like a giant lizard missile. Jake saw him coming and tried to dodge, but the Krek's commander was too fast. Thector's shoulder hit Jake in the chest, sending the human flying backward into a table. The table broke under Jake's weight. He rolled to his feet, wiping blood from his lip. "Is that all you got?" he asked with a grin. This made Thector even angrier. In Krex culture, enemies were supposed to stay down when hit. They were supposed to show fear. Jake was doing neither. More. Aliens joined the fight. Some fought because they did not like humans. Others fought because they wanted to test themselves against the strange new species. A few fought just because fighting had started, and they wanted to be part of it. The Ashanti were proud warrior aliens who looked like giant cats walking on two legs. They had been neutral so far, but their leader, a female named Keshara, stood up from her table. "These humans fight with honor," she announced. "They protect those who cannot protect themselves. This is the way of true warriors." 3 Ashanti warriors moved to help the humans. Their claws were sharp, and they moved like liquid lightning. But they fought to disable, not to kill. Scholar Veltar was the smartest Valdare in the bar. He had been studying human behavior since they joined the galactic community. What he saw now did not match any of his research. "Fascinating," Veltar said to himself. He pulled out a recording device and started documenting the fight. The humans adapt their fighting style based on their opponent's weaknesses. And they worked together without any apparent communication. Jake was fighting 2 Krex at once now, but instead of trying to overpower them, he was using their size against them. When one charged at him, Jake stepped aside and let the Krex crash into his partner. Lisa had found a new strategy too. She was using her knowledge of alien biology to find pressure points that would temporarily disable her opponents without causing permanent harm. A nerve pinch here, a strategic poke there, and aliens much larger than her were falling down. Tony was still riding the Krex like a rodeo cowboy, but now he was also providing commentary. And Jake Morrison takes another swing. "Oh, that's got Tio hurt." Meanwhile, Dr. Kane is showing us some fancy alien anatomy lessons. Even in the middle of a fight, Tony found ways to make jokes. This confused many of the aliens. In their experience, combat was serious business. You fought with rage or cold calculation, not with laughter. Node Prime Zix was the leader of the Zephrites in the bar. All the blue-skinned aliens were connected to his mind. Through their shared consciousness, they were watching the fight from multiple angles at once. What they saw amazed them. The humans were not just fighting. They were protecting Zephrites who had fallen during the chaos. Jake threw himself over a wounded Zephyrite to shield the alien from a Krex's claws. Lisa helped injured aliens to safety, even ones who had been fighting against her moments before. "This cannot be," Node Prime Zix transmitted to his people. "No species protects others at cost to themselves. It goes against all evolutionary logic." Station security finally arrived. Captain Brooks ran into the bar with a team of mixed-species security officers. She took one look at the chaos and started shouting orders. "Break it up. Everyone back to your corners now." But the fight had taken on a life of its own. Aliens, who had never spoken to each other before, were now fighting side by side. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together. Jake found himself back to back with an Ashanti warrior, fighting off a group of angry Krex. The cat-like alien's claws flashed as she disabled opponents with surgical precision. "You fight well for a soft skin," Keshara said without looking back at Jake. "You're not bad yourself, Whiskers," Jake replied, dodging another Krex punch. Lisa was treating wounded aliens with a first aid kit she had grabbed from behind the bar. She worked on everyone equally, regardless of which side they had been fighting. A Valdari with a broken arm sat next to a Krex with a concussion, both waiting for her help. Tony had finally been thrown off his Krex, but he landed on his feet like a cat. He immediately started helping Lisa with the wounded. "Come on, ugly," he said to a dazed Krex. "Let's get some ice on that bump." Security forces were trying to restore order, but they were having trouble understanding what had happened. Normally, bar fights were simple affairs, one species against another, or individuals settling personal disputes. This was different. The battle lines kept changing. Enemies became allies, and then enemies again. Humans seemed to be at the center of it all, but they were not trying to win. They were trying to protect others. Commander Thector stood in the middle of the chaos, breathing heavily. Green blood dripped from cuts on his arms and face. He looked around at the scene and saw something that confused him. Jake Morrison was helping a Krek soldier to his feet. The same human who had been fighting against the Kreks was now making sure the wounded warrior was okay. "Why?" Thector asked. "Why do you help your enemy?" Jake looked up at the big Krek's commander. His own face was bruised and bleeding, but his eyes were clear. "Because the fight is over," he said simply. "Now we help each other." This answer made no sense to Thector. In Krek's culture, you fought until one side was completely defeated. There was no helping enemies. There was no mercy for the weak. But as Thector watched, he saw other humans doing the same thing. They were bandaging wounds, sharing water, and making sure everyone was safe. They treated friend and foe exactly the same way. For the first time in his military career, Commander Thector began to wonder if there might be more than one way to show strength. The Nebula bar looked like a battlefield. Broken chairs and tables were scattered everywhere. Green, blue, and purple blood stained the floor where different alien species had bled. The air smelled like a mixture of antiseptic and fear. Captain Brooks stood in the middle of the mess, trying to understand what had happened. Her security team was interviewing witnesses, but every alien was telling a different story. Jake sat on an overturned table, holding an ice pack to his swollen eye. Tony was next to him, grinning despite a split lip. Lisa was still moving around the room, checking on injured aliens with her makeshift first aid supplies. Dr. Carl West arrived 30 minutes after the fight ended. He was the human diplomatic representative for this sector of space. West was a thin man with gray hair who always wore expensive suits. He looked around the destroyed bar and turned pale. "Morrison," West said through gritted teeth, "do you have any idea what you have done?" Jake looked up at the diplomat. "I stopped some bullies from beating up innocent people. You may have destroyed humanity's future in space." West snapped. "We are on probation. One incident like this could get us banned from all alien territories." Ambassador Yethara stepped forward. She was an Ashanti leader with golden fur and intelligent green eyes. "Dr. West," she said in perfect English, "perhaps you should hear what actually happened before passing judgment." West turned to look at the cat-like alien. The Ashanti were known as fierce warriors, but they were also honorable. Their word carried weight in galactic politics. "Please, Ambassador, tell me what you saw." Yethara's tail swished as she spoke. The humans did not start this fight for personal gain or territory. They fought to protect the weak. In Ashanti culture, this is the highest form of honor. Scholar Veltar approached the group. The tall Valdari had been recording everything on his device. His large black eyes showed confusion rather than the usual Valdari superiority. "Dr. West," Veltar said, "I have been studying human behavior for 2 years. What I witnessed today does not match any of our psychological profiles of your species." "What do you mean?" West asked. Veltar activated his recording device. Holographic images appeared in the air, showing the fight from multiple angles. "Watch how the humans fight," he said. "Notice how they adapt their strategy based on each opponent." The recording showed Jake fighting different aliens in completely different ways. Against the large, slow Kreks, he used speed and agility. Against the quick Ashanti, he used their own momentum against them. Against the calculating Valdari, He became unpredictable. Most species have one fighting style, Veltar explained. It is based on their biology and culture. Kreks use brute force. Ashanti use precision. Valderi use calculation. But humans seem to use whatever style works best against each opponent. Tony laughed, spraying a little blood from his split lip. That's just Jake. He learns fast and adapts. Faster. But that should be impossible, Veltar insisted. Combat reflexes are hardwired into the brain. They cannot be changed in the middle of a battle. Lisa looked up from bandaging a Zephyrite's arm. Maybe that's true for your species, but not for humans. We're adaptable. It's what we do best. Node Prime Zix floated closer to the group. The Zephyrite leader's 4 arms moved in complex patterns. As he spoke through his translator device, the collective observed something else unusual. The mechanical voice said, humans protected members of species they had never encountered before. They showed no preference for their own kind over others. Security Chief Kavak finally arrived to investigate the incident. The Valdari official was known for his thorough analysis of criminal behavior. He had studied every major interspecies conflict in the past century. Kavak walked slowly around the bar, examining the evidence. He noted which tables were broken and how. He measured the blood patterns on the floor. He interviewed every witness twice. After an hour of investigation, Kavak gathered everyone together for his report. This incident defies classification, he announced. In my experience, interspecies conflicts follow predictable patterns. Territorial disputes, resource competition, cultural misunderstandings, or personal revenge. This fight fits none of those categories. Dr. West wiped sweat from his forehead. What are you saying? I am saying that the humans fought for no logical reason. They gained nothing from protecting the Zephirites. They risked diplomatic sanctions, physical injury, and potential death. In exchange for what? The gratitude of aliens they had never met. Commander Thector had been standing silently in the corner, nursing his wounds. Now he stepped forward. The big Krex's voice was thoughtful rather than angry. In Krex culture, we respect strength above all else, he said. But today I learned there are different kinds of strength. The strength to fight is common. The strength to protect others, even enemies, is rare. Ambassador Yethara nodded in agreement. The humans could have walked away when the fight ended. Instead, they stayed to help the wounded. They treated Krex, soldiers with the same care they gave to Zephyrite civilians. Jake stood up, still holding the ice pack to his face. Look, this is all getting too complicated. We saw someone getting picked on, so we stepped in. End of story. But it was not the end of the story for the aliens who had witnessed it. They had seen something that challenged everything they thought they knew about intelligent behavior. Scholar. Veltar was frantically taking notes. The humans display no pack preference. They bond with other species as easily as with their own kind. This should not be evolutionarily possible. Lisa finished treating the last wounded alien and joined the conversation. Why shouldn't it be possible? Humans have always been social creatures. We form communities with anyone who needs help. Because, Veltar explained, evolution favors cooperation within species, not between them. Helping outsiders wastes resources. That could be used to help your own genetic line survive. Tony wiped blood from his lip and grinned. Well, maybe humans didn't get that memo. We've always been weird that way. Node Prime Zix's 4 arms moved in, what his people used as a gesture of confusion. The collective has shared this experience with Zephirites across 17 star systems. None have observed such behavior in any species. Captain Brooks was trying to restore order, but the aliens kept asking questions about human psychology and behavior. It was turning into an impromptu science conference rather than a security Investigation. Dr. West was frantically calling his superiors on Earth. The diplomatic implications were enormous. Either humanity was about to be kicked out of the galactic community, or something unprecedented was happening. "Sir," West said into his communicator, "you need to send xenopsychology experts immediately. The aliens are more confused than angry. They're treating this like a scientific discovery rather than a criminal incident." Ambassador Zephr approached Jake directly. "Human Morrison, would you be willing to answer some questions for the Galactic Cultural Council? Your actions today have raised important questions about human nature." Jake just wanted to go back to his ship and sleep off his bruises. "I guess so, but I don't know what the big deal is. Where I come from, decent people help each other out. That's just normal. Normal for humans, perhaps," Zephr replied, "but not normal for anyone else in the galaxy." As word of the incident spread through the station's communication networks, representatives from dozens of alien governments requested permission to interview the humans involved. What had started as a simple bar fight was becoming the most studied interspecies incident in galactic history. And Jake Morrison, who just wanted to haul cargo and mind his own business, found himself at the center of a debate that would change how the entire galaxy viewed humanity. 3 days after the bar fight, Zephyr Station was busier than it had ever been. Ships from across the galaxy arrived hourly, carrying scientists, diplomats, and military officers. Everyone wanted to study the humans who had confused the entire galactic community. Dr. Samuel Hunt stepped off the transport ship from Earth, carrying 2 suitcases and a head full of questions. He was humanity's leading expert on comparative psychology. The Earth government had sent him to explain human behavior to a galaxy that suddenly did not understand it. Fleet Admiral Laura Stone arrived on the same transport. She was a tough woman, with gray hair and sharp eyes. Stone commanded the human space fleet, and she was not happy about being called away from her duties to deal with what she called Jake Morrison's circus. The Galactic Cultural Council had set up a temporary research station in the main conference room. Aliens from dozens of species worked together, analyzing video recordings of the fight and interviewing every witness they could find. Scholar Veltar had not slept in 3 days. He stood in front of a massive holographic display, pointing out details to a mixed group of alien researchers. "Notice how the humans changed tactics mid-fight," he said, highlighting different parts of the recording. "Here, Morrison uses a Krex combat technique against a Krex opponent. Here, he adopts Ashanti movement patterns while fighting an Ashanti warrior. It's as if they absorb and adapt the fighting styles of other species in real time." Dr. Kexthara, an insect-like Zephyrite scientist, clicked her mandibles in disbelief. "Impossible. Neural pathways for combat behavior are fixed during development. They cannot be altered during active conflict." "Yet the evidence is clear," Veltar replied. "The humans did exactly that." Admiral Stone found Jake in the stations. Human quarters. He was trying to hide from the crowds of alien scientists who wanted to interview him. Stone was not in the mood for hiding. "Morrison," she said as she entered his room without knocking, "you have created the biggest diplomatic incident in human history." Jake looked up from the book he was reading. "Admiral Stone, nice to see you too. How's the fleet? Don't get smart with me, son. Do you understand what you've done? Half the galaxy thinks humans are some kind of super soldiers. The other half thinks we're insane pacifists. And both halves want to study us like lab rats." Jake closed his book and sat up straight. Even in civilian clothes, Admiral Stone commanded respect. "I helped some people who were getting beat up. That's all." "That's all?" Stone laughed, but there was no humor in it. "The Krex High Command has requested detailed reports on human combat capabilities. The Valdari Science Council wants to perform psychological experiments on human subjects. And the Ashanti War Chiefs are offering military alliance treaties based on what they call our honor in battle. Dr. Hunt knocked on the doorframe. "Excuse me, Admiral. May I join this conversation?" Stone waved him in. "Dr. Hunt, maybe you can explain to Morrison here what he's started." Hunt sat down across from Jake. The psychologist looked tired but excited. "Mr. Morrison, I've been reviewing the incident reports. What you did in that bar shouldn't be possible according to everything we know about intelligent behavior." "Here we go again," Jake muttered. "No, listen," Hunt continued. "Every intelligent species in the galaxy has evolved specific survival traits. Kreks are aggressive because they evolved on a world with limited resources. Valdari are calculating because they developed in an environment where mistakes meant death. Ashanti are honor-bound because their ancestors survived through tribal cooperation." Jake shrugged. "So what's the point?" "The point is that humans seem to have evolved all of those traits at once. You can be aggressive when needed, calculating when required, and honorable when called for. Most species are locked into one behavioral pattern. You can switch between them based on the situation." Admiral Stone leaned forward. "And that's making everyone nervous. The galaxy has been stable for centuries because every species was predictable. Everyone knew how everyone else would react in any given situation. But humans don't fit the pattern." Hunt added, "You're adaptable in ways that shouldn't be evolutionarily possible. It's like having a wild card in a game where everyone else knows all the rules." Meanwhile, in the main conference room, the debate was getting heated. Representatives from major galactic powers were arguing about what to do with the human problem. Ambassador Kethral from the Valdari Collective stood at the center of the room. "The humans represent an unknown variable in galactic stability. We propose detailed study and classification before allowing further integration." Commander Thector had been assigned to represent the Kreks military perspective. The big lizard stood up slowly, his scarred face thoughtful. "The Kreks Imperium has fought wars for 1,000 years, he said. "We understand strength in all its forms. What we saw from the humans was not just physical strength. It was something else. Something we have no word for in our language." Ambassador Yethara's tail twitched with interest. "The Ashanti have a concept that might apply. We call it strength of spirit. It means fighting not for personal gain, but for principles that benefit others. But that makes no evolutionary sense," protested Dr. Hexara, a mantis-like scientist. "Sacrificing personal safety for non-relatives wastes genetic resources." Node Prime Zix floated to the center of the discussion. "The Zephyrite Collective has reached a conclusion. Humans operate on moral principles that override survival instincts. This should not be possible in naturally evolved intelligence." The room fell silent. The implications of that statement were enormous. "Are you suggesting," Ambassador Kethral asked slowly, "that humans are artificially created?" "No," Zix replied. "We suggest that humans have evolved something new. A type of intelligence that values abstract concepts like justice and compassion above personal survival." Back in the human quarters, Jake was getting frustrated with all the attention. "Look, I don't know why this is so complicated. Where I grew up, you helped people who needed help. You protected those who couldn't protect themselves. It's just basic decency." Dr. Hunt was taking notes frantically. "But that's exactly what makes you unique, Mr. Morrison. Most species help their own kind because it aids group survival. But you helped aliens you had never met, who could not possibly help you in return. So that behavior pattern suggests humans have developed beyond basic survival programming. You're operating on ethical principles that exist independent of evolutionary pressure." Admiral Stone was reading reports on her datapad. "The Galactic Trade Council is in emergency session. Some species want to limit human expansion until we're better understood. Others want to form immediate alliances with us. What's Earth's position? Jake asked. Earth's position, Stone replied, is that we send our best people to represent humanity in whatever comes next. Congratulations, Morrison. You just became our unofficial ambassador to the galaxy. Jake stood up quickly. Wait, what? I'm a cargo pilot, not a diplomat. You're whatever the galaxy needs you to be, Stone said firmly. Like it or not, you've become the face of humanity to dozens of alien civilizations. Dr. Hunt looked up from his notes. There's something else, Admiral. The aliens aren't just confused about human behavior. They're fascinated by it. Some species are asking if humans could teach them these new concepts. Teach them what? How to care about strangers. How to fight for principles instead of territory. How to adapt and change instead of following fixed patterns. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled for the first time since arriving. Well, I'll be damned. We didn't just confuse them. We gave them hope that they could become something better than what they are. Outside the window, ships from across the galaxy continued to arrive. The bar fight that started with one human standing up to bullies had become something much bigger. It had become the beginning of a new chapter in galactic civilization. And at the center of it all was Jake Morrison, who still just wanted to haul cargo and help people when they needed it. 6 months after the bar fight, the galaxy was a different place. The event that became known as the Morrison Incident had changed everything about how alien species viewed humans and themselves. Jake stood in the main assembly hall of the Galactic Council headquarters, wearing an uncomfortable formal uniform. He still could not believe he was here. 6 months ago, he was just a cargo pilot trying to make an honest living. Now he was about to address representatives from 200 alien civilizations. Admiral Pete Collins had taken over as the human military liaison to the galactic community. He was a different kind of leader than Admiral Stone, more focused on building bridges than maintaining strict military order. Nervous? Collins asked as they waited backstage. Jake adjusted his collar for the 10th time. Terrified. I still don't understand why they want to hear from me. I'm not a philosopher or a politician. That's exactly why they want to hear from you, Collins replied. You represent something they've never encountered before. Ordinary goodness. Lisa Kane stood nearby, wearing the formal robes of a newly appointed xenocultural ambassador. Her studies of alien behavior during the bar fight had earned her respect across the galaxy. She had become the bridge between human intuition and alien logic. Tony Rivera was there too, somehow managing to look casual, even in formal diplomatic attire. He had been asked to stay on Zephyr Station as a human cultural representative. His ability to find humor in any situation had made him popular with several alien species, who were learning that laughter could be a form of strength. Council Prime Vexthari called the assembly to order. The ancient being had led the Galactic Council for over 3 centuries. In all that time, no single incident had caused as much discussion and debate as one human's decision to help strangers. 6 months ago, Vexthari announced to the packed hall, "We believed we understood the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. Each species had evolved specific traits for survival. These traits were fixed and predictable. Then we encountered something that challenged everything we thought we knew." Holographic displays around the hall showed scenes from the bar fight. But now, instead of focusing on the violence, they highlighted the moments of protection and healing that followed. The humans showed us that intelligence could evolve beyond survival programming. They demonstrated that beings could fight for abstract principles like justice and compassion, even at personal cost. Scholar Valtar stood to address the assembly. In the 6 months since the incident, he had become the galaxy's leading expert on human behavior. His research had fundamentally changed Valderai understanding of intelligence and evolution. "The evidence is clear," Veltar announced. "Humans possess what we now call adaptive morality. They can change their behavior based on ethical principles, rather than just survival needs. This represents a new stage in the evolution of consciousness." Commander Thector rose from the Krex delegation. The big warrior looked different now. His armor bore new symbols that represented honor and protection, rather than just conquest. "The Krex Imperium has learned much from studying human behavior," he said. "We have discovered that true strength comes not from defeating enemies, but from protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Our military academies now teach courses in what we call Morrison strategy, fighting for principles instead of territory." This announcement surprised many in the assembly. The Krex had been known as the most aggressive species in the galaxy. The idea that they were learning compassion from humans seemed impossible. Ambassador Yethara spoke for the Ashanti Confederation. "The humans have shown us that honor is not just about personal courage. It is about extending protection to all beings, regardless of species or allegiance. We have formed the first multi-species honor guard in galactic history." Node Prime Zix floated to the speaking platform. "The Zephyrite Collective has experienced something unprecedented. For the first time, we have chosen to act as individuals, rather than as one mind. Humans have taught us that sometimes the collective good requires individual moral choices." Jake listened to all this with growing amazement. He had just been trying to help some people who were getting picked on. Now, entire civilizations were changing their fundamental beliefs about right and wrong. Council. Prime Vexthari gestured for silence. "The question before us today is simple but profound. What do we do with this new knowledge? How do we integrate human concepts of adaptive morality into galactic civilization?" Dr. Samuel Hunt had spent 6 months studying the psychological effects of human behavior on other species. His research had shown that exposure to human moral flexibility was causing evolutionary changes in alien thinking patterns. "The evidence suggests," Hunt reported to the assembly, "that human concepts of justice and compassion are spreading throughout the galaxy. Species that have observed human behavior are developing new neural pathways for ethical reasoning." This was the most significant scientific discovery in galactic history. The idea that morality could be taught and learned across species barriers had revolutionary implications. Admiral Collins stepped forward to speak for humanity. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I want to say that we never intended to disrupt galactic civilization. We were just being ourselves. And that," said Council Prime Vexthari, "is exactly what made the difference." The formal vote was unanimous. Humanity's probationary status was officially ended. More than that, humans were invited to take leadership roles in galactic institutions. The Galactic University wanted to establish a department of human ethics. The Interspecies Military Academy requested human instructors to teach adaptive combat strategies. But the biggest change was personal. Species that had been enemies for centuries were learning to see past their differences. The concept of pack bonding, forming emotional connections with beings outside your own species, was spreading from humans to aliens across the galaxy. Jake finally took the speaking platform. The hall fell silent as the human who had started. "It all prepared to address the galaxy. I don't really know what to say," Jake began. "6 months ago, I saw some bullies picking on people who couldn't fight back, so I stepped in. That's all." He paused, looking around at hundreds of alien faces from dozens of different worlds. "But if that somehow helped everyone understand that we're all in this together, then I guess it was worth getting beat up for." The assembly erupted in what could only be described as galactic applause. Different species showed approval in different ways, clicking, whistling, chirping, and growling. but the meaning was clear. Tony stepped up to the microphone next. "You know," he said with his characteristic grin, "Jake forgot to mention the best part. After we all finished beating each other up, we sat around and had a few drinks together. Turns out, we're not so different after all." This got even more. Applause and something that sounded like alien laughter. Lisa took her turn at the platform. "As the new ambassador for interspecies cultural exchange, I want to announce our first joint project. We're establishing cultural exchange programs, where members of different species will live and work together. The goal is to spread the human concept of found family, choosing to care for others because they need care, not because they share your genetics." The announcements continued. The Kreks were establishing the first interspecies military unit. The Valdari were creating joint research teams with humans to study the evolution of morality. The Ashanti were opening their warrior training to other species. The Zephirites were experimenting with individual decision making. Council Prime Bexthari called for a final vote. All those in favor of establishing the Jake Morrison Accords, a new galactic charter based on the principles of adaptive morality, interspecies cooperation, and protection of the vulnerable. The vote was unanimous. As the assembly ended, Jake found himself surrounded by aliens who wanted to shake his hand, touch his shoulder, or perform whatever gesture their species used to show respect. Commander Thactor approached last. The big Krex warrior extended his clawed hand in the human gesture of friendship. "Morrison," he said, "you taught us that there is honor in protecting the weak. The Krex will not forget this lesson." Jake shook the alien's hand. "Just remember to pass it on, okay? The galaxy's a big place. There are always going to be people who need help." 1 year later, Jake was back to hauling cargo across the galaxy. And now his ship carried more than goods. He transported students between worlds, delivered supplies to new interspecies colonies, and helped set up the cultural exchange programs that were spreading human values throughout known space. Lisa traveled between worlds as an ambassador, teaching alien species about human psychology and learning about their cultures in return. Her work was creating the first truly universal understanding of all. Morality and ethics. Tony had become the most popular entertainer on Zephyr Station. His comedy shows drew audiences from dozens of species, all learning to laugh together despite their differences. The bar fight that had started it all was commemorated with a memorial plaque in the rebuilt Nebula bar. It read simply, "On this spot, 3 humans showed the galaxy that strangers can become family, and that the strongest beings are those who protect the weakest." But the real memorial was the changed galaxy itself. Species that had been isolated for millennia were working,